प्राणश्चक्षुश्रोत्रमथो बलमिन्द्रियाणि च सर्वाणि सर्वं ब्रह्म उपनिषदम् माहं ब्रह्म निराकुर्याम् मा ब्रह्म निराकरोत् अनिराकरणमस्त्वनिराकरणं मे अस्तु तदात्मनि निरते यौपनिषत्सु धर्मास्ते मयि सन्तु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ओमित्येतदक्षरमुद्गीतमुपासीत ओमिति ह्युद्गायते तस्योपव्याख्यानम् तं चेद्ब्रूयुः यदिदम् अस्मिन् ब्रह्मपुरे दहरं पुण्डरीकं वेश्म दहरोऽस्मिन् अन्तराकाशः किं तदत्र विद्यते यदन्वेष्टव्यम् यद्वाव विजिज्ञासितव्यमिति सद्ब्रूयात् यावान् वा अयमाकाशः तावानेषु अन्तर्दय आकाशः उभे अस्मिन् द्यावा पृथिवी अन्तरेव समाहिते उभावग्निश्च वायुश्च सूर्यचन्द्रमसा उभौ विद्युन्नक्षत्राणि यच्चास्य इहास्ते यच्च नास्ते सर्वं तद् अस्मिन् समाहितमिति तं चेत् एवं उक्तवन्तम् आचार्यमित् ब्रूयुः अन्तेवासिनः चोदेयुः। तो Acharya who thus told them that in this Brahmapuri, meaning this city of Brahman, which is his body, there is this Daharam Pundarikam Veshma, a small lotus-sized Veshma, the dwelling is there of Brahman. Dahar Asmin Antarakasha, there is the space within that lotus of the heart. So, Tasmin Yad Vidyate Tadupasitavyam Tadantaha Tadupasitavyam Anveshtavyam Vijignasitavyam iti. So what is within that space has to be known, has to be realized. So to that, if the disciples ask, Kim tadatra vidyate anveshtavyam? Within the heart, which itself is small, there is space which is even smaller. What can there be? Which is to anveshtavyam, vijignasatavyam, which is to be inquired into, which is to be known, which is to be realized. What can be there? So, pundarike veshmani tavat kim syat? Kim tadha alpatare khe yad bhavet iti. If the heart is small, the space within that is even smaller. What can exist there? Meaning the question is, nothing can exist as far as we can see. Dharasmanantaraakasha kim datta vidyate na kinchana vidyate iti abhipraya. That we don't think that anything exists in their space which is even smaller than the heart. Yadi nama badarmatram kim vidyate. In case we accept something exists there, like a small berry fruit, kim tasyanveshvanena vijignasanena va phalam vijignaso syad. So taking this in a literal sense, small means small in size. So heart is small in size, the space within the heart is smaller in size, and what at all can exist in case would be even smaller. So that small little thing is there. What is that to be known in that? What is that to be realized? Kim tasya anveshane vijignyasena va phalam vijignaso syat. If that small little entity exists there, what will be the result, benefit of inquiring into that, knowing it, realizing it? Ato yat tatra anveshtavyam vijignasavyam va na tena prayojanam. So disciples feel that from the literal meaning of what the teacher is describing, we do not see any prayojanam, any purpose which will be served by, any useful purpose which will be served by inquiring into, knowing or realizing that which is within the space, within the heart. Idyuktavataha, to the disciples who may be saying like this, Sācārya bruyāt. Then Shruti says, the teacher should reply to them in this manner. Shruta, disciples, listen, because your mind is going on one track. You are only looking at the physical size, the physical dimension of that space. So that brutha pundirikantah khasya alpatvat tastham alpatam syadati. That you are saying that because the space within the heart is small, therefore what is contained in that space is even smaller, which is what you say, which is what you think. So that line of thinking is not right. Nikham pundarika veshmagatam pundarikat alpataram matva avocham. That the space within the lotus of the heart is even smaller than that lotus, is not what I meant when I said the space within the heart. So, avocham daharosmin antarakashe. There is space which is even smaller than the heart. That's not what I meant. Kim tari, then what do you mean? Pundarikam albam. The thing is that yes, the heart is small. So lotus of the heart is albam, small. Tat anuvidhai tastham antahkaranam pundarikākāsha parichinnam. Tat anuvidhai. Corresponding to that, following that. So, following that, taking the same form, the shape, like the fire takes the form of the iron, so also, antahkaranam. Tastham antahkaranam, the antahkaranam of the mind, which is in that space, pundarika akasha parichinnam. So that antahkarana of the mind is parichinnam, is indeed circumscribed by, limited by that small space in the heart. It is the antahkarana again which is only conditioned, limited by that. Meaning smallness of the space within the heart is as though superimposed upon the antahkarana of the mind, and mind is thought to be so small. Tasmin Vishuddhe. when that mind is purified, Samudakaranam, Yoginam, Vijnana Jyotis Sarupavasam, Tavan Matram Brahma Upalabhyadeti. Tasmin Visuddhe Antahkarane. In that Antahkaran also is called heart. Very often the mind also is called heart because its locus is in the heart. And when the mind is pure, it also represents the very core of one's being. It is closest to the self or consciousness. Tasmin Visuddhe Antahkarane. In that mind which is Vishuddham, pure. Samudakaranam Yoginam. The yogis who are able to withdraw their faculties, the sense organs in the mind, and focus upon that. As Lord Krishna says, Sarvadvarani Sanyamya Mano Hrudi Nirudhyacha Murdnya Dhayatmanah Pranam Asthito Yoga Dharana. So then, Sarvadvarani Sanyamya, closing all the doors to the sense organs, Mano Hrudi Nirudhyacha, and the mind also is to be concentrated in the heart. So this is what is meant here. Tavan matram Brahma upalabhyate. The yogis realize Brahman, which is as though of the same dimension as the space within the heart, the same dimension as the Antahkaranam, where Brahman gets reflected. So Vijnana Jyotis Swarupa Avabhasam. Vijnana Jyotis Swarupa Avabhasa. Avabhasam is the reflection of the Jyoti, the light of consciousness. So the reflected light of consciousness. And Tavan Matram, reflection is itself naturally only as big as the reflecting medium. So mind, which is conditioned by the space within the heart, becomes a reflecting medium to reflect the consciousness, Brahman, which is the Vijnana Jyoti Swarupam, of the nature of the light of consciousness. So Tavan Matram Brahma Upalabhyate. Brahma also is as though realized as small as that. Iti dhara asmin antara kate avochama. So therefore this is what we meant. That there is a space in the heart which is even smaller, not in terms of the dimension, in terms of its reflecting medium. The space stands here for the Antahkarana, which again stands for the pure Antahkarana, which is the reflecting medium. Swachcheva udake, just as it is the nature of water which is pure to reflect any lighted object such as sun, or adayashiva shuddhe swachcham. So also it is the nature of the others of the mirror to reflect what is in front of it. Similarly also, it is the nature of the mind when it is pure like mirror or transparent like water to reflect consciousness, which is Brahman. And so in that sense it is said that as though it is small. The smallness goes away. Not that the smallness anyway remains. From the heart you go to the space, from that you go to the mind, from that you go to the pure mind, from that you go to the reflected consciousness, from that you go to the consciousness itself. So since that is the locus of realization of Brahman, which is consciousness, we said that it is within the heart. But the idea of within the heart now remains in the mind of the yogis when they realize that consciousness is the self. Avuchama antahkaranopadi nimittam. So that Brahman is antahkaranopadi nimittam. It is as limited or circumscribed by the antahkaranam of the mind. Because it is reflected in the mind, therefore it is as though conditioned or limited by the mind. Then continuing on this, page 349, last line of Bhashya, says Anagiri Tādrugeva dhartvam ādāya chodyate ched anupadikam hatopetya samadhis sambhavati kalpantaram nirasyati kim akashasya svabhavikam dhartamopetya chodyate kim va paropādinimittamidi vikalpya. So when the disciples asked, what can there be in that small space? And even if there is something in that small space, what's the use of knowing it? So when you ask this question, Kim akashasya svabhavikam dhartam upetya chodyate, you are asking this question, questioning me, taking that the space is small, because it is smallness is the nature of space. So space within the heart is small by nature, based on, so with that thinking are you asking? Kim va paropādinimittam, or the smallness of the space is because of the upadhi, the conditioning element in the heart. So whether the smallness of the space is inherent in space, or it is only because of the conditioning, from which standpoint you are asking? So if you take the smallness of the space, then that is the mind, and that is the reflecting medium. In that sense, the smallness is said only upadhi nimittam, because of upadhi. But then, tādrugya ādāya chodyate. So if you are questioning because the heart is small and the space is smaller, anupadikam dhatomopedya. So upadikam smallness is there, anupadikam mahatvam. The space of the heart or the antahkaram is small because of this smallness of the upadhi, the conditioning element in the heart. But anupadikam, well, not unconditionally. So just as the sphatika or the crystal, upadikam appears red, anupadikam by itself it is transparent. So also the space appears small or circumscribed by the heart, by itself it is vast. So anupadikam mahatvam upetya, accepting the mahatvam, the largeness of the space, which is anupadikam, the natural inherent, unconditioned. Samadhi, sambhavat, samadhi means samadhana. It is possible to resolve your question based on the inherent vastness of the space. Iti kalpantaram nirasyati. Therefore, even by its nature it is not small, even by upadikam also it is not small. So by nature inherently space is vast. That's what is said here. Svatastu iti. So Bhashyakara says, Svatastu yavan vai prasiddha parimanatah ayam akashah bhautikah tavaneshah antarhrudaye akashah jasmin anveshtavyam vijignyasitavyam cha ahauchama. Svatastu, inherently by its own inherent nature, the space within the heart is what? Yavan vai means prasiddha, akasha parimanata akasha. The space well known, which is parimanata, in dimension. In the vastness, whatever is the vastness of space, Tavanesha antarhruday akasha. Space within the heart also is as vast as this elemental space. Yasmin anveshtavyam anveshtavyatvam vijignasatabhyatvam cha avochama. So that space is vast, where we said one should inquire and one should realize what exists in there, namely the self or Brahman. On the page 350, says Anagiri, Yasmin anveshtavyam ashrena sahiti sheshaha. So Yasmin anveshtavyam, then ashrena sah vijigna ashrena sah anveshtavyam. Meaning that you have to inquire into Brahman or consciousness along with ashraya, which is the space within the heart. It is avochama. Siddhanagiri yavan tavan iti vachanat akashena tulya parimanatvam brahman abhipretam. So as vast as this elemental space, so vast is space or Brahman. So when Brahman is said as vast as the space, akashena tulya parimanatvam brahman abhipretam, it may convey the idea that Brahman also is vast like space. So vastness of Brahman also is equal to the vastness of space. This is what one would conclude. Tatha cha Jan Akashat Ityadi Viruddham. But in third chapter here itself is said Jan Akashat, that Brahman is greater than even Akasha, the space, and he says it as big as the space. Elsewhere he says bigger than space. So Viruddham, so what was said earlier would contradict, or this would contradict what was said earlier. Iti ashankya. If that shanka is there, Bhashyakara says napiti. Or if you go to the line 21, 22, Nanu dharakashabdidasya atmanah bhahyabhutakasamatrattve parichhindatvam syat. Same thing. So now what is meant by Dharakasha is Brahman or Atma. So Dharakasha sabdidasya Atmana Bhakya Bhuta Akasha Matratve. Atma is only as big as the space, elemental space. Parichhindatvam syat. When this space is limited, then Atma also becomes limited. Ityaha nahi means it should be napi really. Napi iti. So the next line Bhashyakara says, Napi akashatulya parimanatvam abhipretya tavan ityuchyate. Even though we say that the space within the heart is as vast as the elemental space here, we do not literally mean that. Napi akashatulya parimanatvam abhipretya, that Brahman has parimanam, the dimension or size only as vast as our space. So when we use the word tavan, yavan and tavan, as towards the space, so vast is Brahman, that's not we meant, or we did not mean that Brahman is only as vast as the space. Kena viparanatari tavan iti uktam. Then keeping what in mind did you say tavan as vast is Brahman? So says kim tarhi. So that's not what you meant. That Brahman is not as vast, is much vaster. Brahman is not just as vast as the space. Then what was intended? So Bhashyakara says Brahmanaha anurupasya drishthantantarasya abhavat. Brahmana anurupasya. Drishtam illustration. There is no other illustration. which can be in keeping with the dimension of Brahman. So therefore space comes closest as far as the illustration is concerned. We do not find any other illustration to give you the idea. So by illustration the teacher seeks to give the idea of what is illustrated, in this case vastness. So space, even earlier also Bhashyakara did say, when Bhashyakara said that Antarakashakyam Brahma. So when it is Antarakasha, right away Bhashyakara said Akasha means Brahman, or self, or consciousness. Akashaiva ashariratvat, because the space is bodiless, no tangibility. Sukshmatva sarvagatatva samanyacha, because space is subtle and all pervasive. So these are the attributes that the space has, which are comparable to the attributes that Brahman has. From that standpoint, what Akasha is used for Brahman. So here also, Drishtantantarasya bhavat. There is no other Drishtanta. So I footnote here, Prasivyadi apekshaya Akashasya Manak Anurupyam Alakshya Drishtantantarasya ityuktam. There is one Drishtantara. So Akasha is one Drishtanta. There is nothing else. So Prithvi also is very vast. The space is much vaster than the earth. So those days, earth was the largest thing that was there, visible. Even the sun and moon are there, but still perhaps earth was considered to be the largest entity. So, Prithvivyadi apeksha akasha. So, other than space, so there is nothing else which can in fact come close to space as far as the vastness is concerned. Therefore, we do not find any other illustration for demonstrating or illustrating the vastness of Brahman. So says the Tika in the line 23, Tulyasya Drishtantantarasya Abhavat Pundarika Krita Pariksheda Nivrityabhiprayana Bhahyakashopama Uchyate. Tulyasya Drishtantantarasya Abhavat. Because of the absence of any other illustration which can come close even to the vastness of Brahman, what does this Drishtanta do? Pundarika krita pariksheda nivrityabhiprayana. That Pundarika, the lotus of the heart, creates the idea of smallness to release the mind of the student from their smallness, is the illustration of space given, that as vast as this. So first of all, it is not a small insignificant entity, so that smallness should go away from your mind. And the vastness shouldn't be confined to space. So illustration of vastness is to eliminate the idea of smallness. At the same time, we do not mean that the vastness of Brahman is only confined to the vastness of space, that then vastness, so once you get free from idea of smallness, then vastness is limitlessness. So Bahya Akashopama Uchyate. The illustration of external space is to only eliminate the idea of smallness created by the lotus of the heart, smallness of the lotus. Tavatapi prasakta alpatva nivritti sambhavad ityartha. So, even by this illustration of space also, the alpatva, which the idea of the lotus creates, that can be removed even by this space also. So, vastness of space is vast enough to remove the idea of smallness created by that lotus of the heart. So, therefore, that illustration serves that purpose. We do not say that it serves the purpose of illustrating vastness of Brahman. It serves the purpose of removing the smallness created by the again the heart, association with the heart. ननु आकाशवत् सर्वगतस्य नित्यः श्वेताश्वतर आकाशवत् सर्वगतस्य नित्यः. The self is akashvat sarvagata, is all pervasive like space. Nitya means it is eternal. Ityadi shruti balad akashatulyatvam mukhyam eva syat. Akashavat sarvagatasya, it is sarvagata, all pervasive like space. So then in Upanishad it is compared, it is said like space. So ityadi shruti balad akashatulyatvam mukhyam eva syat. Why not Shruti says it is like space? So it is like space. Why not? Why don't? So here also Upanishad says that space is as vast as space, external space. So why not take it literally? Why do you want to say that even the external elemental space also is not adequate to really describe the vastness of Brahman? Why? Upanishad says Akashvat Sarvagatasya Nityah. So, Shruti Balat Akash Tulyatvam Mukhyameva Syat Anyatha Alpatva Nivruttau Lakshana Syadi Shankade. Anyatha Alpatva Nivruttau. Even Akash also is Alpatvam. Even the vast space also is Alpatvam or small, limitedness. So now you want to say that even though this illustration of space is given, still we do not mean alpatva of any kind. So Lakshana Vritti. So only then this illustration of space by Lakshana Vritti only says Brahman is limitless. Because there is nothing that is limitless that we can experience or we can conceive. So therefore you give the example of something that can come close, that's all. But only by Lakshana Vritti the limitlessness of Brahman is in fact conveyed here. So Lakshana Syad iti Shankate. So says Bhashyakara Katham Punah iti. Katham Punah na Akasha Samam eva Brahma ityavagamyate. So Katham Punah. Now the question is, okay, then why not you say that it is like space? Akasha Samam eva. That Brahman is as vast as the space. Why not? So says the Tikakara, Katham Punah na avagamyate dhanvaya. Katham Punah Akasha eva Brahma iti na avagamyate. Either way, anyway. So why do you come to conclusion that Brahman is not, Akasha is not even vast enough to illustrate Brahman? To equate, Akasha can be equated to Brahman. Akasha can serve as an illustration, but it can be equated to Brahman. Why? See the Tika, line 26. Akashasya Brahmana Aurtatvoktya Brahma Tatovi Adhikam iti Avagamat Tattulyatvam Ayuktam iti Pariharate. Akashasya Brahmana Aurtatvoktya. Elsewhere it is said that the space is in fact enveloped by Brahman. Avrutatva. Space is enveloped by Brahman. So what envelops is naturally greater than what is enveloped. If the body is enveloped by the cloth, and cloth is vaster than the body. So Brahma Tatopi Adhikamiti Avagamat. So elsewhere it is said that the space is enveloped by Brahman. So from there we understand that Brahman is greater than space. Tat tulyatum ayuktam. Therefore, to say that the space equals Brahman is not right. Yena avritam. So Bhashyakara says, Yena avritam khamcha devam mahimcha. Yena kham devam mahimcha avritam. Yena kham avritam. Then, so Divam Chavrutam, Mahi Cha Avruta, Divam will be Dyauhu Avrutam. So that the Tika will explain. So Yen Avrutam, Kham Cha Divam Cha Mahim Cha. Basically, the envelops or pervades all the three worlds. Mahi is the earth, Divam is the heaven, and Kham is the space. So Brahman in fact envelops all the three, pervades all the three, contains all the three. So Divamiti says that the Tika, Dyuloka ityartha Dvitiya Prathamarthe Drashtavya, because Avrutam. So Kham Avrutam. So we also Dyauhu Avrutam and Mahicha Avruta, whatever. So Dyuloka Avruta, Mahi Avruta. Iti. Again, Anandagiri says, Nutasya pratima sthiti akashadi yena vyaptam loka anubhavati tasmin akshare sarva mrugani samahitam ityartha. So, Nutasya pratima asti. Again, that comes from the Upanishad. So, there is no comparison, no pratima. There is no illustration for Brahman. Shveta. Iti akashadi yena vyaptam loko anubhavati tasmin akshare. So akashadi yena vyaptam, space is also pervaded by which is loka anubhavati. Tasmin akshare sarvamrugadi samahitam ityartha. So in that aksharam or avyakritam, everything, Rigveda, etc. is all samahitam, is all contained, is all located or contained. So this is the meaning of Yenavrutam is Shruti. Anandagiri explained that Shruti by another one, Tasya Pratimasti. So that there is no Drishtanta which can really describe Brahman. Iti Akashadi Yena Vyaptam Loko Anubhavati Tasmin Akshare Sarvam Rugani Samahitam Ityartha. In that Aksharam or in that immutable Brahman, Rug and everything is also contained. This is Kaya Karanayo Atulya Parimanatva Prasiddhescha Na Akasamta Brahmanasti. Kaya Karana Atulya Parimanatva Prasiddhe. It is well known that Karanam is always vaster and larger and greater than Karyam. The cause is always greater than the effect. So effect can never compare to the cause in its dimension, in its greatness. Therefore also, because Brahman is the cause and Akasa is the effect, therefore Akasa with the effect cannot really equate itself with Brahman the cause. Or same thing says, Atmajanyatvad Akashasya Tasya Tata Adhika Parimanatvam iti. Atmajanyatvad, because Akasha is born of Atma or Brahman. Tasya Tata Adhika Parimanatvam iti. So Akashasya Atmajanyatvad api. Because space is only born of Atma, therefore Tasya Tata, that Brahman is the cause is the greater, more vastness than the effect. So Vashyakara says, Tasmadve etasmadatmanah akasas sambhutah etasmin khalu akshare gargi akashah ityadi shrutibhyah. तस्माद् एतस्मात् आत्मनः आकाश संभूतः तस्मात् ब्रह्मणः एतस्मात् आत्मनः. So Atma, which is that Brahman, From Atma, which is Brahman, Akasha Sambhutaha, the space emerged from self, which is Brahman. And therefore also, Brahman being the cause or Atma being the cause is naturally greater than Akasha, which is the effect. Then etasminnu khalu akshare gari akasha bhutasya protasya. So Gari kept on asking a series of questions. So then what is greater than this? And so ultimately Akasha, etasmin akshare gargi, in the akshara immutable, this space also, the Akasha also means Avyakrita Akasha is pervaded by the immutable. See the Tika, Bhuta Akasha Karanasya Avyakrita Akasasya Akshara Shabdite Brahmani Otaprota Bhadapi Adhikatvamiti. So Bhuta Akasha Karanasya Avyakrita Akasasya. So etasmin khalu akshare gargi akasha, that is what Avyakrita Akasha. So Avyakrita means Maya or Prakriti or undifferentiated or Avyakta or unmanifest, the cause. So there the word Akasha means that Avyakrita Akasha. Even that also is being in Brahman, in Aksharam. And so Avyakta Purushah Paraha, Purushatna Param Kinchit, call it Avyakta, call it Avyakrita, for which in the Brihadaranyaka word Akasha also is used. So word Akasha is used for several things now. But Akasha is used for the elemental space commonly. It is also used for Avyakrita and undifferentiated, which is the cause of the universe. Also used for Brahman, which is immutable. So, therefore we have to see in the context to see the meaning in which a given word is used. So, Bhuta Akasha Karanasya Avyakrita Akasasya Akshara Sabdite Brahmani. So, Brahman, which is indicated as Akshara or immutable, the Akasha, which is the undifferentiated and cause of the elemental space, Otaprota Bhavat, even that Avyakrita also is pervaded by Brahman. Adhikatvamiti. So then, if it is Brahman is greater than even the undifferentiated, why to talk of the Akasha, the elemental space? So says Avyakrita Akasha ityartha. Akasha means Avyakrita Akasha. Tajjanya Bhuta Akasasya kyum vaktavamiti bhavaha. If Brahman is greater than the Akasha undifferentiated, then what to talk of greatness of Brahman with reference to elemental space, which is even the effect or created, emerged from the undifferentiated. So then it is one stage further removed. In the Taittiriya Upanishad say that this elemental space emerged from Brahman or the self. But the Brihadaranyaka says that the elemental space emerged from undifferentiated, and undifferentiated also is then emerged or appeared, manifested from Brahman. So Brahman manifests the undifferentiated, and undifferentiated then gives rise to the elemental space. So then, if Brahman is greater than even the undifferentiated Akasha, then what to talk of the greatness of Brahman with reference to the elemental space, which is one step removed further. Adhar Adeyoho Atulya Shubhidhar Parimanatvacha, not Tulya. Adhar Adeyoho should be Atulya Parimanatvacha iti etasmin. So there it is Adhar and Adhaya. Aka Brahman is Adhara and Akasha is Adhaya. Adhara means the support and Akasha is what is supported. Support is always greater than what is supported. So that way also the greatness of Brahman is shown. So Bhashyakara has quoted what happens is, this Shruti does not clearly say that. Here it says only, so Yavanvai Akasha, this as vast is elemental space, so vast is that space, which is Brahman. So then we cannot take it literally because that will contradict what is stated elsewhere. So Bhashyakara quotes what is said about Brahman with reference to Akash and other places as to how elsewhere Brahman is very clearly described as much greater than the space. So here also we should not take Brahman as equal to space. So by Lakshana Vritti, here we take the Lakshana Vritti. And for that Bhashyakara quotes from elsewhere. Again says Anandagiri, Karyami, Dyava Prasivyadi, okay, that comes later. Here going to the other Tika line 38th. Jayan Antarikshad Ityadi Shruti Sangraha. Came earlier, Jayan Akashad, Jayan Antarikshad, it's the same Shruti. Then Bhashyakara says, okay, and itasya akasasya na swabhavikam dharatvam. For this further reason also, the space where is Brahman is not small. So there is smallness in space which is Brahman. For this further reason also, kinchayati. Kincha ubhe asmin dyava prithvi brahma kashe बुद्ध्युपाधि विशिष्टे अंतरेव समाहिते सम्यक् आहिते स्थिते यथा वै अराहा नाभो इत्युक्तम् हि. Again, description here is only that of the elemental space in this passage, understand? Kincha ubhe, again, ubhe both, asmin dyava prithvi samahite, that's all, it's antareva samahite. So in that space which is within the heart, that space is as vast as this space, and in that space, samahite are contained, are supported, established both the heaven as well as the earth. But still that description is only similar to description of the elemental space. So then Bhashyakara every time has to say, so Brahma Akashe Buddhi Upadhi Vishishte. And so because that space within the heart is only conditioned by the Buddhi, therefore Buddhi Upadhi Vishishte, Brahma Akashe Antareva Samahite, the heaven and earth also are contained within this space. Samyak ahite, established in that, sthite, remaining in that. Yathavai arau nabha, araha nabho yuktam. Earlier, just as the spokes are all fixed in the hub, so also the entire universe, including the heaven and the earth, is all fixed in the, then it was the prana. The prana itself is fixed in Brahman, so now this tika, sarvamavritya tishtati iti atra, that comes later in fact. So elsewhere, sarvamavritya tishtati, for that you have to go to the, again, the second sentence quoted by the Tikakara in the line 38. सर्वमावृत्य तिष्ठति अत्र सर्वशब्दार्थ अंतर्गत भूताकाशम ब्रह्मणा आवृतमिति युक्त्यापि. सर्वमावृत्य तिष्ठति, Bhagavad Gita also says, and Shvetashvatam also says, that Brahman remains pervading everything. Sarvam. It pervades everything. That Sarvam includes the space also. So Sarva Shabda Arthantaragata Bhutakasham. Sarva naturally includes the space also. Brahmana Avrutam. So everything including space is pervaded by Brahman. Iti uktyapi Brahma tata adhikam. By that statement also it is clear that Brahman is greater than space. Tata tulyam, not equal to space, iti avagamyate iti sarvam. There is no sarvam in Bhashya anyway. So, unless this Tikakara sees one more quotation by Bhashyakara. Samavruta tishtari, so that other quotation may be in that this Tikakara may have a Bhashya part in which Bhashyakara has quoted Saramavruta tishtari. But we don't have that. Then Dhyava Prasivyo Asmin Samahite. Say Anandagiri, Karyami Dhyava Prasavyadi Karane Samahitam. Heaven and earth are also created, and therefore they are located or contained within the cause. Tat Charudaya Dhyayam. That Brahman which includes or contains the heaven and earth, that must be meditated upon in the space within the heart. That's the whole idea here. Yadvipretya buddhipadi vishishte yuktam bhasakare brahma akashe buddhipadi vishishte. So that space within the heart is only presented as the location for the meditation or concentration. So from the space one has to then focus attention upon the mind which is in that space. From that the consciousness reflected in the space. From that the very consciousness, that is Brahman. So that's how buddhi upadi vishishte. So because meditation takes place in the buddhi, so Bhashyakara said in that consciousness which is as though conditioned by the buddhi, in that all the space and everything is contained. आकाशे द्यावा पृथिव्यादेः समाहितत्वे भूमविद्या संवादं दर्शयति. Akashe, so of course this Upanishad, this statement says that both heaven and earth are contained in that space, but Bhuma-vidya Samvad, elsewhere also it is said, so here they are contained in space, elsewhere it says they are contained in Brahman, so Yathavayati. Yathava araha namo iti uktam hi. Going to the tika down there, na kevalam dharakashasya alpatva tasmin anveshtavim cha sthiti kincha shabdartha kincha. So, na kevalam dharakashasya, not that dharakashasya, there is no smallness in that space, but then there is something which is to be investigated, which is Brahman. Asmin dasyarthamaha Brahma is in. Dyava Prithvi, Asmin is not Brahma Akashe. That's what Bhashyakara said. Brahma Rupe Akashe, Buddhipadi Vishishte, iti Brahma Tatra Upalabhyate, iti Tatha Uchyate. So Brahma Rupe Akashe, Buddhipadi Vishishte. Then Akasha, which is Brahman, conditioned by the Buddhi, that is where Tasmin Anveshtavyam Chasti. In that is what is to be investigated, namely Brahman is there. Asmi Darthamaha Brahma. Okay. So, sorry. Upadiviti Brahma Tatra Upalabhyate Yatha Uchyate. So, Tad Vishishtatvam Paricchad. So, not that Brahman is conditioned by the Akasha in the space, in the heart, That is where it is obtained by meditation. Otherwise, parikshedapattehe. If it is conditioned by the space, then again Brahman becomes limited. So that's not so. Aranabhaviti says, Tika yadyapi idam prana vishayam. So this was stated with reference to prana. How the spokes are fixed on the hub, so also the entire universe is fixed in prana. So this was stated in Bhuma Vidya earlier chapter. There also to describe the greatness of Brahman, Bhuma with reference to prana. That prana itself is so great and Bhuman is even greater than that. Yadyapidam prana visham evam asmin prane saram samarpitam iti vakya shesha. Because this vakya is followed by this vakya evam asmin prane saram samarpitam. In this manner, in this prana, everything is established. Iti vakya shesha tathabi pranasya na sakshat sarvadharatvam. The prana or the vital air also becomes the adhara or the support of the entire universe, not on its own. So adhisthana brahmadvarayati, when prana also gains the ability to sustain the entire universe, not on its own, but because of the Brahman, which is the adhisthana of prana. Then Bhashyakara says, Tatha Ubhau Agnyascha Vayascha Ityadi Samanam. So the other things are also to be understood in the same way. So Ubhau Agnischa Vayascha, both the fire and the wind, Surya Chandramaso, sun and the moon, Vidyun Nakshatrani, the lightning and the stars, all of these also are explained in the same way as the Dhyava Prasivi, this is the heaven and earth, so also sun and moon, so also the fire, sun and the moon, and the Nakshatrani, lightning and the stars, and also the fire and the wind, they are all contained. Then further, then the Upanishad says, Yaccha asya iha asti, yaccha nasti, tat sarvam tadasmin samahitam. So then Bhashyakara says, Yaccha asyatmanaha atmiyatvena dehavataha asti vidyate iha loke tatha yaccha atmiyatvena na vidyate nashtam bhavishyatcha nasti iti uchyate natu atyantameva asad tasya hrudyakashe samadhana anupattehe. Yachyasya atmana atmiyatvena dehavata asti. Also for this person, Yachyasya means what? Of this person. For this individual, whatever he has, atmiyatvena, so whatever he possesses, that's all vidyate ihaloke, all of this is also contained in Brahman. So yaccha nasti, you have to add there, yacchidandra nasti iti padam drashtamyam. And whatever this person does not have, atmiyatvena vidyate, what he does not have as his own. So what he doesn't have is nashtam, either what he has lost or bhavishyat, what will become in future, which is not right now. All of that is also contained in Brahman. So nasti shabdasya atyant asad vishayatvam vyavartayati. Nasti means what? It does not exist. What does not exist now? It does not exist now because either it is lost or it will come in future. So tat sarva tadasmin samahitam, all of that is established or located in Brahman. So tasya natu atyantam eva asat. So what it does not have does not mean something that does not exist altogether, because tasya hrudyakashe samadhana anupattehe. So what does not exist cannot be said to be contained because it's not there. So what he does not have is also contained in Brahman, what he does not have now. That's all. Either he had it and doesn't have now, or he does not have it as yet. So they are all contained in Brahman. Okay, now we'll continue tomorrow. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmere Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Shanti Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.